Today, I'm going to talk to you about scars. Now, standing in front of a chapel literally filled with athletes, I'm guessing many of you have scars from the field or the court or the rink. You probably have scars from childhood too, and maybe they remind you of the stories attached to them. Falling off a bike or a skateboard as a kid, surgery from an injury, or scrapes from a particularly intense athletic contest. In fact, raise your hand if you have a scar somewhere on your body. That's what I thought. For me, one story involves a scar on my knee, which I got when I was 7. The scar is from a cut I got by falling off of a small dock off the edge of a lake, fully clothed, after I was blatantly taunting and splashing some very innocent ducks. Now, this is also called karma, but that's a topic for another chapel talk. So yes, we've all got scars somewhere on our skin. I can also imagine that most of us have invisible scars. Scars for moments in our lives that were just as painful, if not more painful, as that fall off the bike or that fall off the dock, but leave a scar on our hearts and minds instead of our skin. Like a friend who really didn't act like one, especially when it counted. Or a class or a test or a teacher that made you think about what you lacked rather than what you had the potential to learn. Or a loved one who was sick, or who left you before you were ready to let them go. I'd be hesitant to bring up all these scars and potentially painful memories if I didn't also have a remedy for them, or if not a remedy, then a way to put them in perspective. And I got this remedy from a book I read. The book is called Little Bee by Chris Cleave, and it tells the story of a young Nigerian girl who faces traumas that are almost unthinkable. But early on, she tells the reader the following. She says, "We must see all scars as beauty, okay? This will be our secret. Because take it from me, a scar does not form on the dying. A scar means I survived." This struck me as so powerful. The scars that I have and you have and we have formed because the things that caused them, however painful, didn't kill us. We're still here. We live to tell the story. And if we're still here, that means we have an opportunity to choose how to respond. We can't always choose what happens to us, but we can always choose how to respond. We can let that scarring event get the better of us, or we can see it as something beautiful, or if not beautiful, then at least see it as a gift, a lesson. This remedy, this sentiment that Little Bee lived by is not preventative, which is to say, you will get hurt. Physically, mentally, and emotionally. Guaranteed, it will happen and it will be hard. Things will not always go as we planned or wanted. But the resilience and grit that we've heard about and talked about this fall is your ticket to seeing failures and injuries and the scars that they leave as opportunities, not as roadblocks. Perhaps they teach you a simple lesson like don't harass innocent ducks at the edge of the lake. And maybe they teach you bigger lessons, like the lesson I myself have to learn and relearn all the time, which is I am capable of doing difficult things. And the same is true for you. I have another story about scars. When I was in college, I had the opportunity to hear the actor Martin Sheen speak on campus. I was a huge West Wing fan, for those of you who remember that show, and it was such a thrill to see him in person. In real life and also in the show, Sheen is a man of deep faith. He shared the following story, which has stuck with me ever since. He said, "There's an old Irish tale of a man who died and arrived at the gates of heaven. He saw St. Peter and said, 'May I enter?' And St. Peter said, 'Of course, but where are your scars?' And the man replied, 'Why, I have no scars.' And St. Peter looked at him and said, 'Was there really nothing worth fighting for?' Here too, I was left nearly speechless. I thought about all of the scars we and people we know and people we've read about have gotten from fighting for what they believe in. Fighting to end hunger and poverty. Fighting for freedom from oppression. Fighting for human rights and civil rights. Finding something that you believe should be, but isn't yet, and fighting for it. This person should be fed, but isn't. This person should have a roof, but doesn't. should be able to understand but can't, should feel included but doesn't. I could stand here all day listing things because there is so much that needs to be done. But then this is what we're charged to do as humans: make things better. I have one such fight that I feel like I'm still healing from. You know that moment when a cut or a scrape has started to heal, but it still hurts if you touch it, like the scar hasn't quite formed yet? That's where I'm at right now, leaving my last teaching job and starting my job here at Salisbury. At my previous school, I was working with a group of 12 middle schoolers from low-income Black and Latino families who had significant emotional disabilities or learning disabilities or both. For me, the battle was, kids from these neighborhoods should be going to college, but they're not. They should be treating themselves and each other with respect, but they're not. So I put every ounce of my energy and every fiber of my being into that fight. Blood, sweat, and tears was more of a literal investment than a figurative one. In fact, my whole first year of teaching was a series of near failures, and if I'm being honest, just flat-out failures, that shook me to the core of my being and my sense of self. That work was rife with injuries, mostly to my personal well-being in the face of such struggles. I should note that it was also filled with some of the most rewarding successes of my life thus far, and has shaped me as an individual in ways I'm still discovering. It was ultimately the right decision to leave that school and that work for now for a number of reasons. But I find that I'm still smarting from the wounds. Even talking about it to you all right now kind of gives me a pit in my stomach, which tells me the scars haven't quite formed on my heart and my mind. Yet as they do, I've been afforded the opportunity to reflect on the work that I did and be grateful for the lessons I learned, including the big. I can do difficult things and come out in one piece, stronger and smarter. I believe very strongly that with great education comes great responsibility. If you're sitting in one of these pews right now, you're getting a great education. You can check that off the list. Next on the list is the responsibility to do something with it. Find some battles to fight. Find something that should be, but isn't yet, and fight for it. These battles, too, will leave scars. But as the Irish tale implies, scars mean you did something. Scars mean you've done good in God's eyes. As you think about the battles and injuries of all kinds that you've faced in the past and that are facing you this fall, think about the opportunities they've afforded you. We're not meant to fight these battles alone, so reach out to people you trust when the going gets tough. Think about how you can respond to make things better, and then go do it. Because scars mean you fought, and scars mean you survived. Thank you.